Awesome. Welcome from pain to passion. Guys, I am so excited for you to get to hear this story today. It is just a beautiful story of not just survival, but triumph. And not just from victim, but really into such victory. And I'm just excited for you to be able to hear this. You're going to get to hear from Courtney Leong, and she has just a story that will blow your mind to see where she was in life, what happened to her, uh, and what has come as a result of it. Because we all know that a lot of times it's our darkest moments and it's the most painful things in our life that actually end up pointing us into our purpose and into our mission. And so that's really what from pain to from pain to passion is all about. So I'm excited for you guys to be able to hear. Courtney, welcome.
Oh my gosh, Maria, thank you so much. I'm just so honored by you, lady. I love what you do, and thank you for honoring me and letting me come today
Yes.
to tell my
Well,
story.
I know you very well. Obviously, over the last while, we've gotten to have many, many conversations, and I've been. It's just been a privilege to be able to walk with you through your journey. And so, what I would love is to just start off and share a little bit about, about who you are. About tell us a little bit about your life. Okay, and you're gonna walk us through your journey. So, let's start with the beginning.
In the beginning, Courtney was a thought by God. No, this is true. This is true. Wow. Yeah. Well, trying to figure out this. So my biological parents were married at the age of 14. They were emancipated as adults, and so they were very young. And my family could not take care of their children, so I was removed. I actually have 4 birth certificates because my biological birth certificate, and I was adopted 3 separate times, all before the age of 10. And during that time, there was severe abuse. In my first adoption, neglect, and my second adoption, I was trafficked for 3 years, from the ages of 5 to 8. Eating out of garbage cans to survive, having to earn the right to wear clothing, having to earn the right to sleep in a bed, having to earn the right to eat. Those sorts of things. It was horrible.
Yeah.
I was sold by the parents of the adoption. They sold me to their friends, their coworkers, their bosses. I believe that some of the authority that was supposed to be there to protect me was actually involved as well. And so, yeah, that was a very dark time for me. It was just rape, everything. Just my body was used at a very young age. And so that put me through a lot of things, obviously, a lot of health issues, a lot of emotional and mental issues. And it was through the grace of God that I was, at my elementary school, the administration started noticing things. I don't think they fully understand the full picture, but they discovered I was eating out of garbage cans to survive. And at this time, this was, early 80s and older, they didn't have any protections for those who were the whistleblowers. They had mandatory reporting, but they didn't have any laws to protect those that reported. And so a lot of people, they saw something that didn't seem right, but they were afraid because if they were wrong, or if the person that they basically challenged had the money, they could lose their livelihoods, they could go to jail. I mean, there could be really bad situations. And so, unfortunately, that wasn't enough to cause people to come to this children's aid. And at one point in time, the county that I lived in was the worst county in the state of child abuse, and to the point where an agency put out an advertisement that said, "Give us your child, we're not going to ask questions." And so, but the beauty of it is when they realized I was eating out of garbage cans, 5 of these administrators, the principal, 3 teachers, and the janitor. The janitor is the one who discovered it. Started talking. They said, "There's something that doesn't seem right about this little girl," and so they started comparing notes. And then they discovered what was happening, and so they really pushed an investigation. Well, once the heat started going on, my abusers realized we needed to get rid of this child. And it was by the grace of God that this agency had put out that advertisement, because they could have gone the other extreme to get rid of the evidence. And so they dropped me off at this agency. And then after that, that would be the first time I was actually introduced into foster care, because at the time they would take me out of one family, put me in a new one, adoption, take me out of that, put me in a new one, adoption. So hence the trafficking. I think, in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't earlier than that. I do not have any records before the age of 8. I don't have any medical records. The only records I have is the fact that I have 4 birth certificates, because each adoption you get a new one. So,
so
needless,
go ahead.
No. So needless to say, I went through some more dark times in foster care. They kept, every weekend they were putting me in a new family, trying to find me a family. And then my third adoption, beautiful family, my parents now stepped in and adopted me. And so, and so that was a time that was foggy. It was like a safe fog. And then as I became an adult, more memories and dots were connected. And then I got married to an abusive man. I have 3 children, and then I had to get out of that marriage. And then for the last 10 years, I was fighting this man in court. And I got to that point, which is probably a good transition question for you. So.
No, that's great. Thank you. I was going to ask, but you went into it, which is perfect. So, over the last 10 years, you have also really worked on your own personal healing journey. You've done therapy, and you've done all the things to work on healing physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. And then you had some massive healing and growth just as a whole person this last year, particularly.
Someone witnessed that. Yeah.
Yes, with going through the women's school and just digging into being human and oh my goodness, so many things. What would you? Which that really led to you now giving birth to the coolest initiative, which I'm so excited for you to get to share this with everyone. But would you share just briefly a little bit about the
journey between that?
Yes, between that, because that was a pretty big, you did those things during those last 10 years. And then this last year, you've had just exponential, like fast track. What happened and what was such a big shift during that compared to maybe some of the other parts of the healing? Because one of the things you said to me, which just was really touched me, but also made me realize how is that you said, people don't expect those of us who've been through things like that to actually heal so fully. Like there's an expectation of, if you live through that, well, you're always going to be here in a sense. You're still always going to be like that person. And
you're broken beyond, you're broken beyond repair.
You've completely defied that narrative. So could you share with our listeners a little bit about that part of the journey? What happened for you?
Well, to back up a bit, I've actually been very intentional with my healing journey for 18 years. And it's been, and I call it the painful path of healing. But one of the things I realized is that whole time was all cognitive. One of the things that we learned in the women's school is that there's that 5% of our brain's cognitive, 95% is subconscious. And so I never knew that I could heal on that level. And that's kind of how we're wired, right? And so, but at the same time, I think what was the catalyst, I've always said this, God has to set your house on fire before you see the other side of the door and go, okay, that's got to be better than here.
Yeah.
And so the journey of really going into this extreme makeover, if you will, was April of last year in 2019. I had a pretty horrible defeat. And in the middle of that defeat, I was like, God, you don't leave us here. You've promised a plan and a future. I hear it all the time. What am I needing to do? And he was like, you need to take care of yourself. And so I started a health journey. I needed to lose 70 pounds because of my health had just gotten really deteriorated. And so I started doing that. And then come towards the end of January, this amazing lady reached out to me and was like, you've got to check this out. And the thing is, I had thought I had arrived. I was like, I have lost, I think at this point, 50 pounds. I'd done some work on my mind. I'm like, I've done all the work I could possibly do, because I had bought into the lie that all these doctors, I mean, I had doctors for years tell me, well, you should be dead.
Mm.
You should be a drug addict. It's like the worst out of all of this was I was divorced. And so people were like, you should have it. Your life should be completely in shambles. And I'm like, why does it have to be that way?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, you know? And it's the bottom line is that our society looks at the narrative of traumatized people as they're broken beyond repair. So we make them as comfortable as possible. Well, that's a hospice. That's not life. So anyway, as I lost the weight and started feeling good about myself, you come in introducing me to this amazing women's school.
Mm-hmm.
And then you showed me something I didn't think was possible. And so I had bought into this lie that I was going to be on disability for the rest of my life, that by losing weight, my body was happier.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
But then I learned something different. And through the women's school, through that course, and just through all the work we've done, I learned that that's just a thought, and that we can replace that thought,
Mm-hmm.
and that we can change the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Does that
That's
answer
great.
your
Yeah.
question?
So now, as you have just taken off and just living from a place of so much more wholeness and peace and continued healing and continued growth, right? Because we don't ever arrive. That's always a journey. Yeah. And there's always more, which is the coolest thing. And now you have started something just amazing to help other women who have been in your same place. So would you share a little bit about this initiative and what you're doing with that? I'm so excited about it.
I love that you're excited about it. I'm so excited about it. My stomach goes every time. Yeah, it's not just for women. It's for everyone. It's for men and women.
Yes.
But obviously, the chapter that I'm starting is for women. But I'm the founder and creator of Freedom After the Trauma Conference. I realized that there is an ashes to beauty story here, that we don't have to stay in our ashes and be satisfied with that we can actually be renewed and reborn and be able to come out just like that phoenix and just come back, not only come out of our ashes, but come out with fire and come out with this strength that just blows everything away. And I read somewhere that said the darkest it gets, the lighter it'll be. And as I saw that, I was like, that's the phoenix. And then I realized, oh my goodness, how big is this going to get because of how dark my life was in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so it started off as a small baby idea of just giving people a platform to speak. And I called it From Ashes to Beauty at first. And then as I've walked in my own healing and reached new summits, it was like, no, this is bigger. This is way bigger. So I've created this program that's called Freedom After the Trauma Conference. It is an organization. It's a conference. It's meant to bring brilliant minds, outside of the box thinkers, those people who don't believe in the narrative that we're broken beyond repair, those people who believe in the understanding of mind, body, and soul, and the importance of healing all of that together in an integrated way. And it's literally bringing to the table all of these amazing people so that those who suffer can find them.
Yes.
And it's a 3-tiered purpose. The first is an annual conference, and I think we're going to have multiple versions of those. And then the second is a curriculum, and it's going to be an online course and it's not just to teach the caregivers, obviously the social workers, and that's really important, but it's to train the community. Because see, our society do not know how to love those who have been through hell.
Yeah.
They don't know, and instead they get uncomfortable, or instead they think it's beyond their ability, and it's not. Yeah. And so this curriculum is going to teach communities, teach society how to love those who have been broken into wholeness. And then that third tier is to take it to that physical level, doing retreat centers that are going to be transformation places, so that which is going to be a lot more condensed for our trauma victims to be able to go to these places. And my hope is that as they're exposed to these conferences and they get to hear these wonderful people speak about their understanding and knowledge, that their hearts and minds will start opening up, just like mine did, to I don't have to accept my prison anymore. That I'm allowed to see it instead. as my victory.
Mm. I love it so much. It's so good. Um, so now looking at, okay, this is where I was. This is when you look back over your past and you see this whole new life really that's been developing over this last year, and you see all these changes taking place, and you see um, how are you able to view what the past has been? Is it, are you able to look and say, you know, that was the worst thing ever, and it is the worst thing ever. Like there's a level of like that kind of, I just can't fathom that kind of evil, like that's so hard. But can you look at it and start and see, are you able to see, wow, look at the glory coming from that? Evil doesn't get the last word, with
Oh,
that.
yeah.
What has been your experience with just being able to see, as you say, I mean, because even like hearing you say this, and I walked with you for so much of this last year, are you able to see, and to me it's like, holy cow, like spread out before you, but when you're in it, it can be different. What is that like for you looking out?
When you're in it, yeah.
Yes.
There's still pain.
Yeah.
There's still, because things are still coming up. So it's not like I can just be like, all right, one and done, look at this, yay, and keep moving. That's not how it works. And I think everyone needs to understand that, regardless if they've had my level of darkness or not. It's in fact, I don't like even saying level of darkness, because it's darkness. It's like yelling in the room, my side's darker than yours. It's the same darkness.
Mm-hmm.
But the point of it is that I guess the best visual I could ever give you, think about, oh, here, this is cool. Sorry, I'm seeing this. This is awesome. You're flying
Mm-hmm.
in an airline, right? And the pilot says there's going to be some turbulence. I'm going to have to take us to a higher elevation because there's a giant storm.
Mm-hmm.
And if we continue to fly through the storm, that's going to be dangerous. And so they have to fly above it. But I'm sure you've seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
When the pilot takes us above the storm and you look out, the storm is, oh my gosh, it is black, it is dark, it is just insane. But being above it, the sun that is shining above it, you get some people who say, look for the silver lining. And I said, no. We have an awesome Father who isn't a thin line. He is the sun. And so when we get above that storm, so what I feel like my life now is above, it's like I get to look down and there's that storm that I had. And see, here's the interesting thing about it. In the middle of the storm, you can't see it. But when you're above the storm, you can see beauty. Because as the sun the sun is right there and it's all clear around you. But in the storm, you start seeing, oh, wow, that's a beautiful shade of gray. Or, wow, look at that. Look at that lightning. And you start recognizing the beauty in the midst of that storm. And you start realizing the gift of your trauma and how now you can fashion that into tools and a gift to the world, as well as into a weapon to fight the very thing that harms you.
So good. So good. Thank you so much for sharing this. Number one, how can people reach you? Number two, can you give our listeners the dates for the conference? Because it is a virtual conference. And then number three, how can they get involved if they recognize, hey, I want to help with this initiative with Freedom After the Trauma, and, or what can I do to help those who've been through trafficking? What is something very concrete? So what are, I guess, those things? What would you say to all of us? Number one, how can we reach you?
Well, freedomafterthetrauma.com.
And I'll link to that, guys.
Is our link. You can also find us on Facebook. I think it's Freedom After the Trauma Conference. You can find us that. We just look for the Phoenix. You're gonna know it's us when you see the Phoenix. And then the dates. That took me a minute. Our very first annual conference is going to be October 23rd to the 25th.
Okay.
It's a free conference for the weekend, and we are giving VIP passes. I'm hoping that, in fact, I'm expecting that people are going to want to have this content, because we're going to have phenomenal speakers that are going to be there to speak into this. And if you wanted to know how to help Well, the way, basically the number of things, if you go to our website, there is a donation button. We do need sponsors. We do need those who are willing to help use money for good and to help us drive this, because this is going to be big. And then the other thing of it is too, is purchase the ticket, get the VIP pass, because you're going to have so much knowledge available to you that's going to speak into how you can help others.
Yeah.
And then start getting involved in your own community. The best way you can start getting involved in your own community is listen.
Yeah.
Because we, I've shared this with you before. We don't have a stamp on our forehead that goes junk trafficked. You're not going to know. But listen. In fact, in fact, a lot of people who look for the symptoms, because those who suffer from trauma, they're doing it so in silence because they've been silenced. But the symptoms are alcohol addiction, drug addiction, those are things. So when you start seeing that, I'm sure there's church groups, I'm sure there's civil groups.
Yeah.
Volunteer, help those that have been in the trenches, and not and build them up. Money is great, and donations are so important. But if you really want to get involved, get your hands dirty, go that route.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Courtney. I admire you so much, and your bravery and courage and your continued growth and healing, and then to just turn your pain into just this beautiful purpose and passion and mission. It's amazing. So I am excited for everyone to get to attend that conference. So please, I will link the website for that, where you can check out and learn all about it. I also want to encourage you guys to donate towards it. This is such an incredible cause. And then also find out in your community, how can you get involved? Like Courtney said, get your hands dirty, right? To make the world a better place. So you guys have a great rest of your day, your week. Please follow us from Pain to Passion on all the social media stuff, especially on Instagram. And we'll see you next time. Bye.